Friedrich Nietzsche collapsed in the streets of Turin. He threw his arms around a horse being whipped by its owner, tears streaming down his face. And then he lost his mind. For the next 11 years, he lived in silence, unable to speak, unable to write, unable to recognize his own reflection. The man who wrote about becoming superhuman became broken. But here's what they don't tell you. Before his collapse, Nietzsche discovered something about the human will that most people refuse to accept. He wrote it down, published it, sent it into the world like a bomb, and then, as if the universe punished him for revealing it, his mind shattered. Some say it was syphilis. Others say it was a brain tumor. But those who studied his final writings see something else. They see a man who looked too deep, who saw the machinery of human motivation, who understood the terrible truth about willpower, and who couldn't unsee it. Across the ocean, William James, the father of American psychology, was studying the same thing: the nature of willpower, the mechanics of motivation, the architecture of human action. And he found something that contradicted everything we believe about how the brain works, everything we've been taught about achieving goals, everything that makes us feel safe and comfortable. Both men arrived at the same disturbing conclusion. Your brain doesn't want you to do difficult things. It never will. And waiting for motivation is a trap, a beautiful lie that keeps you comfortable, keeps you safe, keeps you weak, keeps you exactly where you are, which is exactly where your biology wants you. Because change is dangerous, growth is expensive, and your brain is designed to conserve energy at all costs. Tonight, we're going to explore what they discovered, the techniques they used, the frameworks they built, and why these methods work, even when everything else fails, even when you've tried everything, even when you've given up hope that you can change. This is The Hidden Codex. Friedrich Nietzsche, 1844 to 1900, German philosopher, philologist, cultural critic, author of Thus Spoke Zarathustra, Beyond Good and Evil, The Will to Power, and The Genealogy of Morals. Born in a small German village. Son of a Lutheran pastor. Studied theology before rejecting religion entirely. Became a professor at 24, the youngest ever at the University of Basel. Then walked away from academia. Spent the rest of his life writing, wandering, thinking, alone. William James, 1842 to 1910. American philosopher, psychologist, physician, founder of functional psychology and pragmatism. Brother of novelist Henry James. Born into wealth in New York. Studied medicine at Harvard. Suffered from depression for years. Contemplated suicide multiple times. Then discovered something that saved him. Not happiness, not peace, but a method. A way to force action despite despair. He turned that discovery into a career, into a science, into a legacy. Two men, same era, different continents, both obsessed with the same question. How do humans overcome themselves? How do we do what we don't want to do? What is the mechanism of will? What happens in the brain when we choose difficulty over comfort? And why do most people never make that choice? Nietzsche approached it philosophically, poetically, violently. He wrote like a prophet, like someone possessed. His books read like fire, like warnings, like revelations from someone who'd seen behind the curtain of human nature and found something terrible. James approached it scientifically, methodically, practically. He conducted experiments, studied cases, built theories. His books read like manuals, like blueprints, like instruction guides for rewiring the human mind. But both arrived at truths that make people uncomfortable. Truths about laziness, about comfort, about the lies we tell ourselves when we say, "I'll start tomorrow," about why tomorrow never comes, about why most people live their entire lives in preparation for a life they never actually live. Before we go deeper, if you sense there's more to willpower than positive thinking and motivation videos, if you're tired of the surface-level advice that never actually works, if you've noticed that inspiration fades and discipline seems impossible, subscribe to the Hidden Codex. Turn on notifications, because what comes next cannot be unlearned. And once you understand it, everything changes. Let's continue. Let's start with what Nietzsche discovered about motivation. He wrote something in Beyond Good and Evil that most people misunderstand. He said, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." People read that as inspirational. Find your purpose and everything becomes easy. Find your passion and work becomes play. That's not what he meant. Not even close. Nietzsche was saying something darker, something harder. He was saying that meaning doesn't make things easier. It doesn't make suffering disappear. It doesn't transform difficulty into pleasure. It makes suffering tolerable. It transforms pain from meaningless to necessary, from random to purposeful, from avoidable to essential. And that's the key. That's what changes everything. Your brain will always resist difficulty. Always. That's not a flaw. That's design. Your brain is optimized for survival. And survival means conserving energy, avoiding danger, maintaining homeostasis. Difficulty threatens all of that. So your brain generates resistance. Not as a conscious decision, as an automatic biological response. But if the difficulty has meaning, something shifts. The resistance doesn't disappear, but it becomes irrelevant. You stop asking, "Do I feel like doing this?" You start asking, "Does this matter?" And if it matters, you do it. Feeling irrelevant, motivation unnecessary, will sufficient. Most people do this backwards. They wait to feel motivated before they act. They wait for inspiration, for the right mood, for circumstances to align, for the stars to position themselves correctly. And while they wait, their lives pass by. Days become weeks, weeks become years, years become decades, and they die having never started, having never tried, having never become who they could have been. Nietzsche saw this as a form of weakness, not moral weakness, biological weakness, a spiritual disease he called the last man. He described the last man in Thus Spoke Zarathustra with contempt and pity. The last man blinks and says, "What is love? What is creation? What is longing? What is a star?" And then goes back to sleep, back to comfort, back to safety, back to nothing. The last man wants comfort, safety, ease, predictability, entertainment, distraction. And modern society is designed to create last men, to keep you comfortable, to keep you scrolling, to keep you consuming, to keep you in a perpetual state of low-grade pleasure that never demands anything from you, that never asks you to grow, that never forces you to become. Think about it. Every app on your phone is designed to make things easier. Every service you subscribe to eliminates friction. Every product you buy promises convenience, and convenience is the enemy of growth, because growth requires friction, requires resistance, requires difficulty, and we've built a world that eliminates all of it. But here's what Nietzsche discovered. The brain doesn't distinguish between difficulty and growth. To your nervous system, they're the same thing. Every time you avoid discomfort, you're training your brain to stay small, to stay safe, to stay weak, to stay exactly where you are. And every time you choose discomfort, you're training your brain that growth is possible, that change is within reach, that you are more than your current limitations. Nietzsche wrote in his notebooks, "The snake which cannot cast its skin has to die. As well the minds which are prevented from changing their opinions. They cease to be mind." He wasn't being poetic. He wasn't using metaphor. He was describing a neurological reality, a biological truth. The mind that doesn't change dies, not physically, but functionally. It becomes rigid, fixed, unable to adapt, unable to evolve, a living fossil. So how does this work in practice? Let's say you need to do something difficult. Write, train, build, create, study, start a business, leave a relationship, move to a new city, whatever it is. The normal approach is to wait until you feel like it, to wait for motivation, to wait for the right moment. But Nietzsche would say that's already the wrong frame. You're asking the wrong question. You're operating from the wrong assumption. The question isn't, how do I get motivated? The question is, what am I avoiding by staying comfortable? Because avoidance isn't passive, it's active. It's a choice. Every time you choose comfort, you're choosing to remain who you are right now. And who you are right now is the accumulation of every comfortable choice you've ever made. Every time you hit snooze, every time you scrolled instead of wrote, every time you watched instead of created, every time you consumed instead of built. Nietzsche called this the eternal return. He asked, what if you had to live this exact life again? Every moment, every choice, every avoidance, every compromise, forever, on an infinite loop. Would you celebrate or despair? Would you embrace it or collapse under the weight of regret? And if you would despair, then you're living wrong. You're choosing comfort over becoming. You're choosing safety over truth. You're choosing to remain the last man. The eternal return isn't about reincarnation. It's about honest self-assessment. It's about looking at your life and asking, if this was all there is, if this pattern repeated forever, would I be proud? And if the answer is no, then something has to change. Not tomorrow, not next week, not when circumstances improve. Now, today, this moment. Now here's where William James enters. While Nietzsche was writing philosophy, James was studying psychology, and he discovered something that validated everything Nietzsche said. But he found the mechanism, the actual neurological process behind willpower, the step-by-step procedure for building the capacity to do difficult things. James wrote in The Principles of Psychology, "The greatest discovery of my generation is that human beings can alter their lives by altering their attitudes of mind." But that's the quote everyone knows, the inspirational poster version. Here's what he wrote next, what they don't teach in schools, what they leave out of the motivational speeches. But such alteration is neither easy nor painless. It requires the deliberate construction of new mental habits through the systematic repetition of unwanted actions. Unwanted actions. Read that again. Let it sink in. James wasn't talking about doing what you love. He wasn't talking about following your passion. He wasn't talking about finding work that doesn't feel like work. He was talking about doing what you hate. Systematically, deliberately, repeatedly, until your brain rewires itself. Until the unwanted becomes automatic, until discipline replaces motivation. James discovered what neuroscience would later prove with brain imaging and decades of research. Your brain operates on pattern recognition. It conserves energy by automating behaviors. Every action you repeat creates a neural pathway. The more you repeat it, the stronger the pathway becomes. Eventually, the action becomes automatic, requires no conscious effort. No willpower, no decision. Motivation is just the feeling you get when an action aligns with an existing pattern. When it fits into the automated routines your brain has already built. When it doesn't, resistance. Every single time, your brain flags it as dangerous, as energy expensive, as unnecessary, and it generates discomfort to stop you from doing it. But here's the key, and this is what most people miss. This is where everything changes if you understand it. Motivation follows action, not the other way around. You don't wait to feel motivated. You act, and motivation appears afterward. Sometimes. Sometimes it doesn't. And that's when you discover if you have will or just wishes. If you're capable of change or just addicted to the idea of change. James studied people who accomplished difficult things. Artists who created despite depression, athletes who trained despite injury, scholars who studied despite distraction, soldiers who fought despite fear. And he found they all had one thing in common: not talent, not genetics, not favorable circumstances. They didn't rely on feeling motivated. They relied on what he called the will to believe. But most people misunderstand what James meant by the will to believe. They think he meant positive thinking. Believe you'll succeed and you will. That's not it. That's the bastardized self-help version. James meant something more subtle, more powerful. The will to believe in the action itself. The decision that I will do this thing regardless of how I feel, regardless of the outcome, regardless of whether it works or fails. I will do it because I decided to do it. And my decisions matter more than my feelings. This is crucial. You're not believing in success. You're believing in your capacity to act independent of emotional state. That's what will is. The ability to override biological programming. To do what your brain is screaming at you not to do. Not because you're brave, not because you're special, but because you decided, and you honor your decisions more than your discomfort. So how does this work in practice? James developed a method. He called it the construction of voluntary attention. Here's how it works. You choose an action. Doesn't matter what it is. Something small, something you've been avoiding, and you do it. Not when you feel like it, not when circumstances are perfect, not when you have time, not when you're ready. Now, right now, in this moment. And here's what happens. The moment you decide to act, your brain resists. Immediately, automatically. It generates every excuse, every rationalization, every reason why tomorrow would be better, why this isn't the right time, why you should wait, why you should prepare more, why you should think about it longer. And this is the moment, the only moment that matters, the moment that determines everything. Because if you override that resistance once, you create a micro-pattern, a tiny neurological pathway that says, I can do things I don't want to do. I can act despite resistance. I am capable of choosing difficulty. It's microscopic, barely noticeable, but it's there, a seed planted. Do it again tomorrow, same thing, same resistance, same override. The pathway strengthens, the seed grows. Do it for a week, 2 weeks, a month, and something shifts. Does the action become easier? No. The action stays difficult. Your brain still resists, but your relationship to difficulty changes. You stop seeing it as a barrier. You start seeing it as nothing, just something you do, like breathing, like walking. Not pleasant, not unpleasant, just necessary. James wrote, "The hell to be endured hereafter of which theology tells is no worse than the hell we make for ourselves in this world by habitually fashioning our characters in the wrong way." He meant every moment you choose comfort, you're building a weaker version of yourself. And that version will have to live your life. A life that demands strength you didn't build, courage you didn't develop, will you didn't forge. Every comfortable choice compounds. Every time you hit snooze, you become someone who hits snooze. Every time you scroll instead of create, you become someone who scrolls. Every time you consume instead of build, you become someone who consumes. And that person, the one you're building with every choice, will face challenges, will encounter difficulty, will need strength, and won't have it. Because you didn't build it, because you chose comfort. Now let's connect Nietzsche and James. Because what they discovered together is more powerful than what either found alone. Because philosophy without method is just theory, and method without meaning is just mechanism. You need both, the why and the how, the purpose and the process. Nietzsche said, your life must have meaning, not happiness, not pleasure, not comfort, meaning, the kind that makes suffering worthwhile, the kind that transforms pain into purpose, the kind that lets you look at difficulty and say, this is necessary, this is building something, this is worth it. James said, meaning isn't enough. You need method, a systematic approach to building will, a process for creating discipline, a framework for rewiring your brain. Because good intentions don't change behavior, systems change behavior, repetition changes behavior, consistency changes behavior. Together, they reveal the complete picture. Your brain will always resist difficulty. That's not a bug, it's a feature. It's how the brain conserves energy. It's biology. It's evolution. It's millions of years of programming optimized for survival. But humans are unique. We can override biological programming through meaning and method, through the decision that this difficult thing matters and the discipline to do it anyway. Every day, regardless of how we feel, most people live in a loop. They wait for motivation. It doesn't come. They feel bad about themselves. Guilty, ashamed, weak. They consume content about motivation, videos, books, podcasts. They feel temporarily inspired. The dopamine hits. They imagine themselves changed. They feel the pleasure of potential without the pain of action. And then they wait again. The loop repeats, the cycle continues, and years pass, decades pass, and nothing changes. Nothing ever changes. Nietzsche would call this slave morality, the belief that someone or something external will save you, will make things easier, will provide the energy you lack, will transform you without your participation. But no one is coming. Nothing is coming. No app will do it. No book will do it. No video will do it. Not this one. Not anyone. The only variable that changes is you. And you only change through voluntary suffering, through the deliberate choice to do difficult things when you don't want to, when every fiber of your being is screaming to stop, to rest, to wait. James would add, and you must start small, not because small is easier, but because small is sustainable, because your brain needs proof that you can override it. It needs evidence. It needs data. Give it that proof once, a single repetition, a single override, then again, and slowly, incrementally, imperceptibly, you become someone different, someone who doesn't need to feel motivated, someone who acts regardless, someone who has will. Let me give you a concrete example. Let's say you want to write. You've always wanted to write. You have ideas, you have stories, you have things to say, but you never write. You think about writing. You plan to write. You buy books about writing. You watch videos about writing, but you don't write. Why? Because writing is difficult. It requires sustained attention, mental effort, the confrontation with your own limitations, and your brain resists all of it. So you wait for inspiration, for the perfect moment, for the right mood, for circumstances to align, for life to calm down, for work to ease up, for stress to decrease, and you're waiting for something that will never come. Because perfect moments don't exist. Because life never calms down. Because there will always be a reason not to write. But if you understand Nietzsche and James, you approach it differently. First you ask, why does writing matter? Not, why should I write? That's the wrong question. That's asking for external validation. The question is, why does this matter to me? What meaning does it hold? What am I building by writing that I'm destroying by not writing? Maybe you realize writing is how you think, how you process, how you understand yourself and the world. When you don't write, you don't think clearly. You become muddled, confused, lost. Writing isn't optional. It's necessary for your mental health, for your clarity, for your sense of self. That's your Nietzschean meaning. Now James provides the method. You commit to the smallest possible version. Not write a novel, not even write every day. Just write for 5 minutes. That's it. 5 minutes. No quality standard, no outcome requirement. Just 5 minutes of putting words on a page. That's so small it feels stupid. That's how you know it's right. You set a time. Let's say 6 a.m. Before work, before distractions, before the day steals your attention. And tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. you sit down, and immediately your brain resists. It says, you're tired. You didn't sleep well. You can do it later. You should check your phone first. You need coffee first. You should wait until you feel more awake, more creative, more inspired. And this is the moment. You notice the resistance. You don't fight it. You don't argue with it. You just open the document and write. Anything, garbage, stream of consciousness. It doesn't matter. You write for 5 minutes. Set a timer. When it goes off, you stop. Done. Complete. What just happened? You overrode your brain. You proved something. You created evidence that you can act despite resistance. The neural pathway forms, microscopic but real. Tomorrow, same thing. 6 a.m. Same resistance, same override, same 5 minutes. The pathway strengthens. After a week, you've written 7 times. That's 7 pieces of evidence that you can write when you don't want to. 7 overrides. 7 proofs. After 2 weeks, something shifts. Not that it becomes easy, but that you stop asking if you'll do it. You just do it. It's automatic. Your brain still resists, but the resistance becomes background noise. You write through it, over it, despite it. After a month, you're someone who writes. Not someone who wants to write, Someone who writes every day, regardless. That's a different identity, a different self-concept. And that identity, once formed, becomes self-reinforcing. Now here's where it compounds. After a month of 5-minute sessions, you can increase. Not to 30 minutes. That's too big a jump. To 7 minutes, 2 minutes more, barely noticeable. But after another month, that's an extra 60 minutes of writing. After 6 months of this pattern, you're writing 15 to 20 minutes daily. After a year, 30 minutes. And you've produced actual work, real writing, a body of material that wouldn't exist if you'd waited for motivation. James studied this pattern across domains: athletics, academics, business, art, music. The pattern holds. Start impossibly small. Repeat daily. Increase incrementally. Never rely on motivation. Build identity through consistency. And the person who emerges after a year is unrecognizable from the person who started. But here's what both Nietzsche and James knew, what they warned about. Most people won't do this. They'll understand it intellectually. They'll agree with it philosophically. They'll recognize its truth, and then they'll do nothing. Why? Because the method is boring. It's not sexy. It's not inspiring. It doesn't promise quick results. It doesn't offer shortcuts. It's just repetition. Day after day, week after week, month after month. And most people would rather stay comfortable than endure that. Nietzsche saw this in his time. He wrote about the herd, people who want the benefits of strength without the cost, who want to become exceptional while remaining comfortable, who want transformation without change, who want a different life without becoming a different person. And the world accommodates them, gives them content, gives them courses, gives them programs, gives them everything except what they actually need, which is difficulty, sustained, deliberate, voluntary. James saw it too. He wrote extensively about what he called the divided self, people who know what they should do but never do it, who live in perpetual preparation, who mistake thinking about action for taking action, who plan and research and organize but never execute. And every day they don't act, they become more of who they already are. Someone who doesn't act, someone who waits, someone who dies with potential unrealized. Now let's go deeper into what happens in the brain during this process, because understanding the mechanism makes it easier to trust the method. When you decide to do something difficult, several things happen neurologically. First, your prefrontal cortex, the executive function center, generates the intention. I will write. That's conscious, deliberate, volitional. But immediately your limbic system responds. That's the emotional center, the survival center. It scans for threat, and difficulty registers as threat, not life-threatening, but resource-threatening, energy expensive, so it generates discomfort. That's the resistance you feel, not laziness, not weakness, biology, designed to keep you safe, to keep you conserving resources, to keep you alive. Normally, the limbic system wins. The discomfort becomes strong enough that the prefrontal cortex backs down, changes the decision, rationalizes avoidance. I'll do it later. This isn't the right time. I need to prepare more. These aren't conscious lies. They feel true, because the limbic system is flooding your consciousness with signals that support avoidance. But when you override that signal and act anyway, something different happens. The prefrontal cortex maintains the intention despite the discomfort. It tolerates the negative emotion without changing the decision. And this sends a signal to the rest of your brain. This action is more important than comfort. This goal is more valuable than feeling good. We're doing this regardless. Do that once, and the pathway forms. A connection between intention and action that bypasses emotional state. Do it repeatedly, and the pathway strengthens. Myelinates, becomes faster, more efficient. Eventually, it becomes the default route. You intend something, you do it. Emotion irrelevant. Feeling unnecessary. Will sufficient. This is what James called the construction of voluntary attention. You're literally building new neural architecture, not through thinking, not through understanding, through doing, repeated, systematic, consistent. The brain is plastic, changeable, moldable, but only through action, only through repetition, only through the sustained override of biological programming. Nietzsche understood this intuitively. He wrote, "That which does not kill me makes me stronger." Everyone quotes it. Almost no one understands it. He wasn't talking about surviving trauma. He wasn't talking about getting through difficult circumstances. He was talking about voluntary difficulty, the deliberate choice to do hard things when you could choose comfort. Because every time you do, you prove to yourself that you're capable of more than you thought. And that proof changes everything. It changes your self-concept, who you believe you are, what you believe you're capable of, your sense of agency, your locus of control. Every override is evidence, data, proof that you're not a victim of your emotions, that you can choose your actions independent of your feelings, that you have will. And will, once discovered, once proven, once validated through repeated use, becomes the foundation of everything else. James conducted experiments to test this. He had students commit to small, arbitrary actions. Touch your nose every time you walk through a doorway. Say, "Good morning" out loud when you wake up. Snap your fingers before sitting down. Meaningless actions, but difficult because they required remembering, paying attention, overriding the automatic routines the brain had already built. Students who could maintain these arbitrary actions for 30 days showed increased capacity for other difficult actions. They procrastinated less. They followed through more. They reported feeling more in control of their lives, not because touching their nose mattered, but because they'd proven to themselves that they could decide something and then do it, consistently, despite forgetting, despite resistance, despite discomfort. This is the secret both men discovered. Willpower isn't a feeling, it's a capacity, a muscle, and like any muscle, it grows through use, but most people never use it. They wait for circumstances that don't require it. They wait for easy, for convenient, for comfortable, and their will atrophies, weakens, eventually disappears. And then they wonder why they can't change, why they can't follow through, why they always give up. But here's the disturbing part. The part both men saw clearly, the part that makes this knowledge dangerous. Once you understand this, once you prove to yourself that you can override resistance, you lose all excuses. You can never again claim you can't do something because you don't feel like it. Because you've demonstrated that feeling doesn't matter. That you can act regardless. And that's either liberating or terrifying, depending on how honest you want to be with yourself. Nietzsche wrote about this in Thus Spoke Zarathustra. He described 3 metamorphoses of the spirit. First, the camel, the beast of burden that carries what it's told to carry, that does what society says to do, that lives according to external rules. Most people stay here, forever, the comfortable slave. Then comes the lion. The lion says no, rejects the burden, refuses the programming, recognizes that the rules were arbitrary, that the life you're living isn't the life you chose, that you've been asleep. The lion wakes up, gets angry, roars. But the lion can't create. It can only destroy. It can only say no. Finally, the child. The child creates, plays, experiments, builds, makes new values, new meanings, new purposes. The child doesn't ask permission, doesn't wait for approval, doesn't need motivation. The child acts, spontaneously, freely, purely. This is the goal. This is what you're becoming, not the camel, not even the lion, the child, the creator, the one who acts because action is its nature. But here's what Nietzsche knew, what he warned about. You can't skip stages. You can't go from camel to child. You have to become the lion first. You have to say no. You have to reject the comfortable programming. You have to recognize how much of your life is driven by avoidance, by fear, by the desperate attempt to stay safe, stay comfortable, stay asleep. And that recognition is painful. It's why most people don't do it. Because seeing how much time you've wasted hurts. Seeing how many opportunities you've missed hurts. Seeing how small you've kept yourself hurts. It's easier to stay the camel, to blame circumstances, to wait for external change, to die having never tried. James approached this from the other direction. He studied people who broke free, who changed despite their circumstances, who became different despite everything staying the same. And he found they all had what he called a crisis of meaning, a moment where they couldn't ignore it anymore, couldn't rationalize it anymore, couldn't wait anymore. For James himself, it was depression, deep, persistent, suicidal. He spent years in that darkness, unable to see a future, unable to find purpose, unable to imagine change. And then he read something. A philosopher named Charles Renouvier wrote about free will, about the capacity to choose independent of determinism, and James decided to conduct an experiment. For 1 year, he would act as if he had free will, even though he wasn't sure, even though he doubted. He would make a decision every morning, something small, and he would do it, regardless of how he felt. He started with getting out of bed at a specific time. That's it. One decision, one action, every morning, and slowly, over months, something shifted. Not that his depression disappeared. It didn't. But he found he could act despite it, could move despite it, could live despite it. And that discovery saved his life, led to his career, led to his life's work studying the mechanics of volition, of will, of the human capacity to override biological and psychological programming. Now let's talk about what stops people from doing this. Because understanding the obstacles is as important as understanding the method. The first obstacle is the belief that it shouldn't be this hard, that if you're doing the right thing, it should feel right. That passion makes work effortless. That purpose eliminates difficulty. This is a lie, a comfortable lie, a lie that keeps you waiting, keeps you searching, keeps you avoiding. The truth is, everything worthwhile is difficult. At first, for a long time, maybe forever. Writing is difficult, training is difficult, building is difficult, creating is difficult, learning is difficult, growing is difficult, changing is difficult. That's not a sign you're doing the wrong thing. It's confirmation you're doing the right thing, because difficulty is the price of growth, and growth is the only thing that matters. The second obstacle is the comparison trap. You see people who make it look easy, who seem naturally disciplined, who appear motivated, and you think something's wrong with you, that you're broken, that you lack what they have. But what you're seeing is the end result, the finished product, the person who's already built the capacity for discipline, who's already established the patterns, who's already done the work you're about to do. Everyone starts at zero. Everyone faces resistance. Everyone struggles. The people who succeed aren't different. They just started earlier. And they didn't quit. That's the only difference. Time plus consistency. There's no secret, no hack, no shortcut. Just the willingness to do difficult things repeatedly until they become who you are. The third obstacle is the desire for transformation without change. People want different results while maintaining the same behaviors. They want to be disciplined while staying comfortable. They want to be productive while avoiding discomfort. They want to change without changing. And this is impossible. Logically impossible. Mathematically impossible. Neurologically impossible. You are the sum of your repeated behaviors. Your identity is the accumulated result of your consistent actions. If you want a different identity, you need different actions. And different actions require overriding your current programming, which is uncomfortable, which is difficult, which is necessary. The fourth obstacle is catastrophic thinking about failure. People don't start because they're afraid they'll fail. They'll miss a day. They'll break the streak. They'll prove they're weak. And that fear becomes self-fulfilling. They don't try, so they don't fail. But they also don't succeed. They stay safe, stay comfortable, stay exactly where they are. But here's what James discovered. Failure isn't binary. Missing once isn't catastrophic. What matters is what you do after. Do you miss once and quit? Or do you miss once and resume? That's the difference. That's what separates people who change from people who stay the same. James advised his students, never miss twice. Missing once is data, an experiment, information about what didn't work. Missing twice is a pattern, a choice, a return to the old programming. So you can miss once. You will miss once, multiple times, but you never miss twice. You always resume, always continue, always return to the method. Now let's talk about what happens when you actually do this. When you commit to the method. When you override resistance daily. When you build the capacity for voluntary action. Because the results aren't what most people expect. They're not inspirational. They're not dramatic. They're subtle, cumulative, compound. First, you notice you have more time. Not because anything changed externally, but because you stopped wasting time avoiding, stopped wasting energy on internal negotiation, stopped wasting attention on distraction. You decided to write. You write. No debate. No deliberation. You reclaim all the time you used to spend convincing yourself to start. Second, you notice anxiety decreases. Not because life becomes easier, but because you trust yourself more. You know if you decide something, you'll do it. You're not worried about following through. You're not stressed about your own reliability. You've proven you can do difficult things, so future difficult things don't seem as threatening. Third, you notice your self-respect increases. This is subtle but powerful. You like yourself more, not because you're achieving great things, but because you're keeping your word. To yourself, you said you'd write, you wrote. You said you'd train, you trained. You're becoming someone trustworthy, someone reliable. And that person, even at the beginning of the journey, is someone you can respect. Fourth, you notice opportunities appear, not magically, but because you're different. You're doing things, creating things, building things, and people notice. Not your intentions, your actions, your results, and opportunities follow results, always, invisibly, reliably. Fifth, you notice internal dialogue changes. The voice in your head that used to negotiate, that used to rationalize, that used to convince you to wait, it quiets. Not because you've defeated it, but because you've stopped listening to it. It speaks. You acknowledge it, and then you act anyway. Over time, it learns it has no power, and it stops trying as hard. Now here's what both Nietzsche and James warned about. What they saw in people who started this path. There's a point usually around 3 to 6 months in where you face a crisis. Things are working. You're changing. You're growing. And it becomes frightening, because growth means leaving behind who you were. And who you were is familiar, safe, known. Your brain will generate reasons to quit, sophisticated reasons, logical reasons. It'll say, you've proven you can do this. You don't need to keep going. You've changed enough. You can relax now. Take a break. You've earned it. And these thoughts feel true, feel wise, feel like self-care, but they're sabotage. Your old programming trying to reassert itself. Nietzsche called this the spirit of gravity, the force that pulls you back down, that makes you heavy, that convinces you to stop climbing, to settle, to accept mediocrity. He warned that the spirit of gravity is strongest right before breakthrough, right before transformation, right before you become unrecognizable from who you were. James saw the same thing. He called it the return of the old self, the psychological immune system trying to maintain homeostasis, trying to keep you the same, because change, even positive change, registers as threat, as danger, as something to be resisted, and your brain will use every trick to stop you. The solution is simple but difficult. You keep going. You don't debate. You don't negotiate. You don't take breaks. You continue. Through the crisis, through the doubt, through the fear. And on the other side, you emerge different, fundamentally different. Not improved, transformed. This is what Nietzsche meant by becoming who you are. Not discovering some hidden authentic self, but creating yourself through action, through choice, through the sustained override of biological programming. You're not finding yourself. You're forging yourself, building yourself, becoming yourself through the accumulated weight of difficult decisions made consistently over time. Let me give you another concrete example. Physical training. Most people approach exercise like they approach everything else. They wait to feel motivated, They wait for Monday. They wait for the perfect program, the right gym, the ideal circumstances. And they never start. Or they start and stop, over and over. The cycle repeats. Nothing changes. But if you understand Nietzsche and James, you approach it completely differently. First, you ask, why does this matter? Not, I should exercise. Not, I want to look better. Those are weak motivations. External motivations. Borrowed motivations. Why does physical strength matter to you? What does it represent? What does it enable? Maybe you realize physical training is a laboratory for building will. It's a place where you practice doing difficult things, where you confront resistance in its purest form, where you can't lie to yourself. The weight either moves or it doesn't. You either showed up or you didn't. It's honest, brutal, pure. That's your meaning. Now the method. You commit to something impossibly small. Not work out every day. That's too vague, too ambitious. You commit to do 5 push-ups every morning. That's it. 5, not 10, not 20. 5 takes 30 seconds. No equipment needed, no gym required. Just 5 push-ups. And tomorrow morning, you do them. Your brain resists. You're tired. You're sore. You're busy. It doesn't matter. 5 push-ups. Done. The next day, same thing. The override becomes familiar. After a week, you've done 35 push-ups you wouldn't have done. After a month, 150. After 6 months, you're doing 20 or 30 at a time. After a year, you're doing real workouts. Multiple sets, different exercises. And your body has changed. Not because you found motivation, but because you built discipline. Now let's address the elephant in the room. What about rest? What about balance? What about burnout? These are valid questions, but they're often used as excuses, as rationalizations for avoidance. Here's the truth. Real burnout comes from doing things you hate for reasons you don't believe in. It doesn't come from pursuing meaningful difficulty. If you're doing something that matters to you, using a method that works, starting small and increasing incrementally, burnout isn't the risk. Quitting is the risk. Giving up is the risk. Returning to comfort is the risk. Your brain will disguise the desire to quit as concern for your well-being. Don't fall for it. That said, rest is important, but rest isn't the opposite of action. It's recovery between actions. And it's earned. You rest after you've acted, not instead of acting. You don't rest your way to discipline. You don't comfort your way to strength. You act your way to capacity, and then you rest, and then you act again, bigger, harder, more. Nietzsche rested. For months at a time, he would retreat to the mountains, to isolation, to silence. But he rested after periods of intense work, after writing books, after thinking deeply, after pushing himself to his limits. He earned his rest through exertion, and his rest prepared him for more exertion. That's the cycle. Not rest instead of work, rest between work. Now let's talk about the dark side of this knowledge, because there is one. Once you understand that you can do difficult things, that motivation is unnecessary, that will is sufficient. You lose the ability to lie to yourself. You can't claim you're trying if you're not acting. You can't claim circumstances are stopping you when you know you're stopping yourself. You can't claim you're the victim when you know you're the variable. This is why most people don't want this knowledge. Not really. Because it's easier to believe you're limited by something external, by genetics, by resources, by opportunities, by privilege, by luck. Because if it's external, you're not responsible. You're not at fault. You can stay comfortable, stay safe, stay small, and blame the world. But once you know that you're the only variable that matters, you lose that comfort. You have to face the truth, that every day you don't act is a choice. Every time you wait is a decision. Every moment you spend avoiding is voluntary. And that's terrifying, because it means everything is your fault, your responsibility, your burden. And most people don't want that weight. Nietzsche wrote, "The individual has always had to struggle to keep from being overwhelmed by the tribe. If you try it, you will be lonely often and sometimes frightened. But no price is too high to pay for the privilege of owning yourself." He meant taking responsibility for yourself, for your actions, for your life, means separating from the herd, from the people who blame, who wait, who make excuses. And that separation is painful, lonely, frightening. But the alternative is worse. The alternative is living someone else's life, following someone else's script, remaining someone else's idea of who you should be, and dying having never discovered who you could have been. That's the real tragedy. Not that you tried and failed, but that you never tried at all. So what does this mean for you, right now, in this moment? What's the difficult thing you've been avoiding? The thing you know you should do? The thing that if you did it, would change your trajectory, would compound over time, would make you someone different? You know what it is. You've always known. The question is, will you do it? You have two choices. You can close this, feel temporarily inspired, maybe even motivated, and then do nothing. Return to comfort, return to safety, return to the life you already know leads nowhere. That's one choice, the comfortable choice, the safe choice, the choice most people make. Or you can decide, right now, that you will do the thing. Not tomorrow, not next week, not when circumstances improve. Now, today, this moment, you will identify the smallest possible version of the difficult thing, and you will do it. Before this day ends, before you sleep, you will prove to yourself that you can override resistance, that you have will, that you're capable of more than you thought. If you choose the second path, here's what will happen. You'll do the thing. It'll be difficult. You won't feel motivated. You might not even do it well, but you'll do it, and that will be enough. That will be everything, because you'll have evidence, proof, data that you can act despite resistance. Tomorrow, you'll face the same choice, and you'll remember today. You'll remember that you did it once, and you'll do it again. Not because it's easier. It won't be easier. But because you're becoming someone who does difficult things, someone who keeps their word to themselves, someone who has will. Do this for a week, 2 weeks, a month, and you'll be unrecognizable from who you are now. Not in dramatic ways, in subtle ways, in the way you walk, the way you talk, the way you think about yourself, the way you face challenges. You'll be someone different, someone stronger, someone real. Nietzsche and James can't do this for you. I can't do this for you. No one can. Because the only way to discover if you have will is to use it. And most people never find out. They live their entire lives wondering, waiting, wishing, and they die with that question unanswered. But you don't have to. You can answer it today. Not with words, with action. Not with intention, with execution. Not with plans, with proof. The snake sheds its skin or dies. The mind changes or ceases to be mind. You overcome yourself or remain what you are. There's no middle ground. There's no comfortable transformation. There's only the decision, and then the action, and then the next action, and then the next. Until one day you look back and realize you're no longer the person who needed motivation. You're someone else, someone stronger, someone who chose to become. Nietzsche and James saw this, lived this, taught this, suffered for this, and then left it here. For anyone willing to pick it up, the question is, are you? Or will you wait for a better time, a better mood, a better version of yourself to appear without effort? Will you wait for the universe to align, for circumstances to improve, for permission to start? Most people wait their entire lives. They wait until it's too late, until they're old, until they're dying, and then they realize the perfect time never came. The ideal circumstances never arrived. The motivation never appeared. And they wasted their one chance, their one life, their one opportunity to become who they could have been. But you're still here. You've listened this far. So maybe you're different. Maybe you're ready. Maybe you're done waiting, done making excuses, done living small. If this revealed something you needed to hear, if this exposed a truth you've been avoiding, if this made you uncomfortable in the right way, hit that subscribe button. Turn on notifications, because here at the Hidden Codex, we don't traffic in comfortable lies. We don't sell motivation or inspiration. We don't promise easy transformation or quick results. We reveal what works, what's always worked, what will always work. The difficult path, the only path, the path both Nietzsche and James walked and left for us to follow. A path of voluntary suffering, of systematic difficulty, of deliberate discomfort, because that's the price, and either you pay it or you don't. Either you become or you remain. Either you choose growth or you choose comfort. There is no third option. Next time, we'll explore Schopenhauer's philosophy of suffering and why he believed pain is more real than pleasure, why he thought existence itself is a mistake, and why, despite that belief, he didn't commit suicide, why he chose to live, to think, to write, to endure. You don't want to miss that. Until then, stop waiting, stop preparing, stop researching, stop consuming, start acting, start becoming, start proving to yourself that you're more than your current limitations, more than your comfortable patterns, more than your safe life. The time is now, not tomorrow, now. The question is, what will you do with it? Stay awake.